Hi everyone and welcome to Theme Park Worldwide. In this video I'm going to be ranking the 10 different roller coasters located at Blackpool Pleasure Beach here in the United Kingdom. Now when it comes to the Pleasure Beach, they've got a fantastic variety of coasters, lots of older, more historic rides mixed in with some pretty iconic roller coasters too. See what I did there? The Blackpool Pleasure Beach honestly does have some fantastic coasters, and in this video I'm going to be talking all about them. Now with this, of course, it is my list, this is my ranking of these coasters. Some of them might be quite controversial, but like I say, this is my list, the ones that I enjoy the most. So yeah, let's go straight in there in 10th place and talk about this first ride. As always, I would love to know your ranking of the Blackpool Pleasure Beach coasters in the comments down below. 10th place then, straight in there, bit of a controversial one possibly, but this is my list, it's Infusion. Now Infusion is a SLC coaster manufactured by Vekoma. SLC standing for Suspended Looping Coaster, of course. Now this ride opened at Blackpool Pleasure Beach in 2007, and it's the standard 689 metre layout from Vekoma. Now with this ride, it wasn't brand new when it came to the Pleasure Beach. It was originally built in 1999 at Southport Pleasureland. When that closed in 2006, they relocated it to the Pleasure Beach and replaced it on the site of the former log flume. Honestly, I used to love that log flume so much more than Infusion, and that's why it's in 10th place on the list. But yeah, you know, with this, I kind of feel like that is why this ride doesn't ride great at all. Even though a lot of SLCs I don't particularly enjoy, this is one of the worst in my opinion. I find it really rickety and uncomfortable. I don't like the over-the-shoulder restraints on this. They're just very bulky, aren't they? I mean, don't get me wrong, I know that the coaster needs over-the-shoulder restraints. However, you know, they're just very thick, very bumpy on the ears. It's a bit of an ear basher. You've got to know how to ride it. For me, it's holding onto them handlebars, either head facing all the way forwards or all the way back. But in my opinion, you shouldn't have to do that to enjoy a ride. And even when you do, it's still pretty uncomfortable. Now, as I mentioned, it's the standard layout, 689 metres. That does feature 5 different inversions on Infusion, and it also reaches a top speed of 50 miles an hour. Now, with this, I did actually ride it when it was Traumatizer at Southport Pleasureland, and yeah, it certainly didn't ride anywhere near as bad. So I'm thinking during that move, when they relocated it and rebuilt this again, it's just not helped the ride, and of course it's aged in that time as well, and it just doesn't ride great at all. The one thing I do like about this ride is the overall look of it. I think it's fantastic. All over water, there's a little beach, fantastic water fountains. It's Pleasure Beach, there's going to be fountains, but yeah, it looks great, but in my opinion, it's just very rough and uncomfortable. It's a standard layout, and it's just nothing special compared to the other rides at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So let's move on then into 9th place, over to Nickelodeon Land now, and this is for the first wooden coaster that's going to be in the list, and this is Blue Flyer. Now, when I was a kid, and this was Beaver Creek in that area, it used to be known as the Zipper Dipper, and for me, there's part of me that still calls it that when I'm at the park. It's always known for me as the Zipper Dipper, but this is a brilliant little junior wooden roller coaster that was actually built all the way back in 1934. This is when you start to realise the heritage of the Pleasure Beach, which is absolutely fantastic and what's made the park known around the world. With Blue Flyer, pretty underrated in my opinion. It's a great ride, but it still does sit quite low down in my list compared to a lot of the other coasters at the park. Now with Blue Flyer, it's got 1,000 feet of track, around 334 metres in length. It's just over 1,000 feet actually. So you know what, it might not be a long coaster, but what it's got is nice. Just starts off with a lift hill, a couple of little airtime hills, through a tunnel and then into the brakes. But it's a great ride, a good starter coaster for the kids as well. I remember going on it when I was young before I went on all the other rides, and it's just a good way of building up the kids to go on the bigger rides, isn't it? So yeah, it's got to be straight in there, 9th place. Nice historic wooden coaster that's still going strong today as the Blue Flyer at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, 1934. Crazy, isn't it? And we're going to be talking about some older dates in this list as well. Let's move on then into 8th place in the list, and coming up here is Avalanche. Now this is a Mack Rise bobsled that actually opened in 1988. Now with this ride, it's got a beautifully themed station. I love the soundtrack in there as well, and the overall ride fits in very well to Pleasure Beach. However, it's just not the most thrilling of experiences, even as a family coaster, which it's designed as. The layout's good, but I've been on much better versions of this ride. Now if I'd have rode this back in 1988 when it opened, I'd have probably probably thought it was absolutely incredible because there was nothing else really like it other than in a couple of places. However, as of 2021, there is other versions of this ride all around the world, and I must say there's some brilliant ones out in mainland Europe. Still, it's a good fun coaster. I do enjoy it. You actually get a little bit of airtime on there as well. With the restraint system on this, it's pretty free, to be honest. You're not really restrained in too much, which makes it quite an enjoyable ride. It's got some good twists and turns in it, but it doesn't really do too much on the layout compared to other versions of this ride that have got 2 or even 3 lift hills. With Avalanche, it does just feature the 1. Let's move then down into 7th place. And up next is another wooden roller coaster staying in Nickelodeon land. However, it's not always been Nickelodeon land. This used to be known as the roller coaster, and previous to that, part of it was actually the Velvet Coaster too. Now, it actually opened as the roller coaster back in 1933. Yet again, a wooden roller coaster. And like I say, parts of this ride actually date back all the way to 1909. The original Velvet Coaster. Parts of the station, the lift area, and also some other sections of the ride, not much, but some parts were actually part of a former wooden coaster, the Velvet Coaster. And then, like I say, that ride was transformed, or should I say upgraded, in 1933 into the roller coaster. It's now known as Nickelodeon Streak. It's painted bright orange, and you know what? It's a good fun ride. I love the trains on this too. They're so comfortable, all the padding on the seats. Do really like that about Nickelodeon Streak, and it rides great as well. Don't get me wrong, it's had a bit of a jolt on the lift hill, but after that, you know, it's a very comfortable ride. It's got some fantastic airtime moments, and I love that out and back style layout, what there is on Nickelodeon Streak as well. I still want to call it roller coaster, you see. In my head, it's still, oh, it's roller coaster from growing up, but no, still Nickelodeon Streak now. And you know what? It's still an absolutely fantastic coaster at the park. I do really enjoy it, and it reached a top speed of 35 miles an hour too, so quite a good speed on there, and it's beautifully comfortable. Honestly, I could sit on Nickelodeon Streak all day. Let's move then down into 6th place, and this is Steeplechase. Now, this was built by one of my favourite ever manufacturers, Aerodynamics. Unfortunately, they don't build coasters anymore, but over the years, they've done some absolutely fantastic rides. Not just coasters, they've done dark rides and all sorts. And Pleasure Beach always had a great relationship with Aerodynamics, as you're going to find out throughout this video, because there's 2 other coasters that are going to be featured at Pleasure Beach in this list that were built by Aerodynamics. Now, with this, it opened in 1977, and you know what? It was one of only 2 ever built. The other one was like a soapbox style, and that was at Knott's Berry Farm in California, USA. This was the only one to actually have the horses on. And I absolutely love it. I think it's a great ride. Technically, it is 3 different coasters. You've got 3 different tracks on there. It depends, you know, some people won't count that. I do count it as 3 coasters. However, some people probably wouldn't. It's personal preference, but it's 3 completely separate tracks, and they all race against each other on these horses, which is great. Now, along with that, it's actually quite high in places. You get some great aerial views across that part of the park, especially after Icon opened in 2018. You go straight above Icon. Before that, you went all above the go-karts that were down there. Along with that, great views of Nickelodeon Streak, Big Dipper as well, and that's what makes the Pleasure Beach. It's the interactions that I do really enjoy. But yeah, I really like Steeplechase. It's a great ride. So many people don't really talk about it anymore, but I just really enjoy it, and I think it's a good, solid ride that I very much enjoy. So we're down to the halfway point then now, and it's time for another wooden roller coaster in 5th place, and this is the Grand National. Bit of a classic at the park, probably the most famous wooden roller coaster, I would say, that people know all around the world. And don't get me wrong, the Grand National is a fantastic ride. However, I do find it uncomfortable these days, especially in some seats. But I still do ride it, and I still enjoy it. I know it's part of the history of the park. I'd still love to see some work done to it though, retracking work, new trains possibly to make it a lot fresher and riding better again, but it's still a fantastic ride considering it opened all the way back in 1935. It's a racing wooden coaster, but it's actually only 1 track because it's a Mobius loop. So how this works is the 2 tracks are continuous, forming a single circuit Mobius loop. So yeah, that's kind of how it's set up. At first you might think, oh, it's 2 coasters, 2 credits, but no, it is just the 1 coaster with this, and you'll notice how the trains swap over because it being a Mobius loop when they come back into the brakes and the station. Very well designed, great ride, and yeah, you can't tell at all. Looking at it first of all with 2 lift hills and everything, you would think it was 2 completely separate coasters. With this ride, it features some fantastic elements. I love the turnarounds, I love the airtime, especially them bunny hills towards the end of the ride. Honestly, it's a fantastic layout. I love it to bits, but it's just a bit uncomfortable these days. If it was retracked, I think it'd be right up there near the top of the list. Not at the top, but near the top. But unfortunately, due to how it's riding as of throughout last season, I imagine the same this year unless much work's been done to it, it's just not the most comfortable ride anymore. However, I do still really enjoy it, and I appreciate the history that it brought to the park when this opened as well back in 1935. Lots of rides built back then. Crazy times, it really was. Let's move then into 4th place then now, and another favourite of mine. Honestly, it is hard to rank all of these in an order because I love them all now, especially from that 5th place onwards. Even before that, you know, I love lots of the rides at Pleasure Beach, other than Infusion really. And this is going straight in there with the Big Dipper in 4th place. Now, this ride is going to be approaching 100 years old soon. It's another wooden roller coaster, and this is absolutely fantastic. It was built in 1923, so a couple of years we'll be celebrating 100 years of the Big Dipper. However, the layout's not always been like it is today, quite a out and back sort of layout. It still was out and back before. However, it actually went to the left, kind of following the path of where the big one lifted is these days, where the building is for Space Invader 2, basically at the end of Nickelodeon Land, the huge building with the pizza restaurant in. Big Dipper used to go that way. However, the layout was actually changed, and then, yeah, you know, they made it the coaster what it is today. So yeah, it was modified back in 1936. It's got 3,300 feet of track, 1,005 meters, and it's just an all-round enjoyable wooden coaster. I love the airtime hills, I love the drops. You've got some pretty steep drops on this. My favorite section of the ride is when you're towards the end of the layout, you start in that return bottom section, making your way back to the brakes, but you've got a drop that kind of takes you by surprise where it dips down and you've got like a concrete pillar just above it. Brilliant, because you're not expecting the drop to be that big, but it is. And again, it's pretty iconic. The design of the station with all the archways. I love the top of Big Dipper with the structure on there. It's just iconic for the park, isn't it? Even though it's not icon, it's iconic. Do you like that? We're building up to that one. It's a great ride and one of my all-time favourite wooden coasters. It really is. Let's move then into 3rd place then now, and this is another interesting choice possibly. However, this is my list. Let me know yours, like I say, in the video comments. It's the big one. Now, this opened in 1994, of course, as the tallest roller coaster anywhere in the world. And with the big one, it was manufactured once again by Aerodynamics. Brilliant manufacturer that I absolutely love, Aero coasters. Now, with the big one, you know, it's a great ride to look at, isn't it? Like the structure of the ride is absolutely fantastic. The first drop is stunning. There's nothing else like it in the world. Looking out so close to the water, all across the sea, and then dropping straight down. It is fantastic. In terms of the height of this, it's 213 foot tall, 64 meters. That's from the promenade, from the road. The park always advertise it from sea level, which is, you know, a little bit further down, but I normally go with from the promenade. The signage that's actually on the lift hill is from sea level, but like I say, it's actually 213 feet if we're going from the road level with this, so 64 meters. With the big one, it reaches top speeds of around 74 miles an hour, and it does offer a great and thrilling ride experience. Now, the ride did start to get quite rough a few years ago, but the park knew that, and they're starting to replace parts of the track. Anywhere that's had a bit of wear and tear, they did some replacement work last year. They've recently done some again this year, and I imagine that's just going to continue as they're doing a lot of the track really, and especially the sections that have a lot of stress, a lot of pressure going on to them. So that is really good to see that they're looking after this Aerodynamics hypercoaster. You know, it was, like I say, the tallest and longest roller coaster in the world when it opened in 1994. The big year for coasters here in the UK. Shockwave at Drayton, Nemesis, of course, Alton Towers, and yeah, with the big one at Pleasure Beach. So it's an iconic ride. I do really enjoy it, but there is another couple of steel coasters at the park that are far superior in my opinion. I think with the big one, if it was riding like it used to, I'd probably put it into 2nd place now with the lineup, but because of how it does still ride. At times, it can be a bit one of those. Sometimes you have a great ride on it, other times it's not great. All depends what seats you're on and where you sit in, the wind conditions, all that does play a big part on rides, but especially on the big one. So for me, into second place is actually Revolution. This might be a bit of a surprise for some people, but I've always said it in the vlogs, I absolutely love Revolution. I think it's a brilliant ride. For a few years, it was actually my favourite coaster at Pleasure Beach. I just rode it all day. I absolutely love it. Again, this was manufactured by Aerodynamics. It's a shuttle loop, and this opened in 1979. Now, with this, a lot of people say it's got launches. That was actually the first double launch coaster in the UK. Wow. How it works is like an electric winch that pushes the train. It doesn't launch it, it pushes the train. So that's how that works. And it is fantastic. It's a very simple layout, isn't it? It's just got, it pushes down a drop, into a loop, and then it comes backwards again. But I tell you what, it's ridiculously intense. It's the most intense coaster at the park, one of the most intense coasters ever. Like that loop coming backwards into it, the way it was designed by Arrow is absolutely stunning. I love it to bits, I really do. Reached a top speed of around 45 miles an hour, and I just really like the modern look of it, what they did. All the colour scheme on there I think looks great. I kind of preferred it, of course, before Icon was put in, because it's got the same kind of colour scheme. I kind of wish that Revolution now was something else, but I do still like the look of it. I just wish that, you know, it wasn't similar to Icon with the colour schemes with the black and grey. But still, it's a great ride and I absolutely love it. Like I say, it's intense and I think it's pretty underrated for me. When you're coming into that section and down into the loop, it's fantastic and very intense, and especially when you come backwards on that as well. Let's move then into the top spot, my favourite coaster at Blackpool Pleasure Beach out of the 10. It is, of course, Icon, a Mack Rise launch coaster that opened in 2018. This features 2 launches. It's got a top speed of 52 miles an hour, and it's got some fantastic elements packed into this. It's got a brilliant top hat near the start of the ride. You come out of that tunnel with all the mist and up into this top hat, which interacts with the big one's lift hill that I absolutely love. Along with that, it's got some brilliant interactions with the other rides in general. Like, honestly, that's what makes Icon for me. The position. If that ride was built at any other park, I wouldn't rate it as highly. The fact it's at Pleasure Beach and interacting so much with the other rides really makes Icon an absolutely fantastic coaster in my opinion. 1 minute you're down in a tunnel, the next minute you're up in the air with looking down at the other rides. Honestly, the way that it's been built is absolutely brilliant. Dipping down in and out of other rides and different structures. It really is fantastic in my opinion. With this ride, it's got an awesome inline twist where you get some great hang time, and also a junior Immelman on there as well, which is a great element. It's up to you whether you class that as an inversion. Some people do, some people don't. I would say that I would class that as an inversion, making it that Icon has got 2, but I know some people wouldn't class a junior Immelman because it's not like a full Immelman where you are fully upside down. But give or take, whether it's an inversion or not, it's a great element. Coming out of that second launch and up into that junior Immelman is absolutely awesome. It's got some great airtime and intensity, and it's just a complete package. It's got some really nice decor all the way around it. I wouldn't particularly call it heavily themed. It's just nicely landscaped or stylized. That's the word that they like to say at Pleasure Beach, and Amanda Thompson described it as stylized, so we'll go with that. It's a great ride. I love the trains, the lighting package on there, and it's a great night ride too, isn't it? It looks absolutely gorgeous. Can't wait to get back on Icon. Dare to ride. But there we go. That's my top 10 list, ranking all of the 10 coasters at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Like I say, I would love to know yours, so comment down below. Maybe your list is completely different. With this one, I'm expecting people's list to be very different. I've already filmed a couple of these already. However, I think with this one, it's going to be very different to what other people would choose. So let me know yours down below in the video comments. As always, everyone's got different opinions. It's important to respect that. For me, I hate Infusion and absolutely love Icon. I can see for some people it might be the reverse, the other way round. So let me know in the video comments. Thanks for joining me for another video here on Theme Park Worldwide. Brand new videos to enjoy on our channel every single day, and I'll be back tomorrow with a new video for you all to enjoy. Thank you for watching, and that leaves me with one final thing to say: get out there and keep on riding. See you soon.